Welcome to the Nurse Converse podcast. Today we have a very exciting and near and dear to my heart episode where it will be myself, Ama Mathewos, along with three other nurses who will be talking about what it's like to be African American and Black as a nurse. And so let's dive right on in. I want to do introductions. So how's everyone doing today?
Good.
Pretty good.
All right. So just for our listeners, if you don't mind sharing, and we can start with Casey, ladies first. You can say your name, your role, where you live, and one word that you would describe what it's like to be a Black nurse in America.
Hey, I'm Casey, also known as Critical Care Casey. I've been a nurse for 10 years, working in everything critical care. And currently I'm in nurse anesthesia school. I'm a first year and relocated from the beautiful state of Maryland to Chicago, Illinois. So that's where I live now. If I had to describe what being Black in nursing would be resilient.
Yes, thank you for that. Everett?
Okay. All right. Officially, I am Dr. Everett Moss. I am a certified registered nurse anesthetist. And I have been in nursing for 10 years now. And I've been in healthcare for 21 years. I currently live in South Carolina, though I'm bred, born, and fed, ATL, Georgia. And one word that describes the experience as a Black nurse in America, needed. Very much so needed.
I love it. Y'all got me rethinking my word now. Thank you for that. Travius?
I'm Travius Keandric, out of Marion, Alabama. Where Coretta Scott King from, Martin Luther King wife. So shout out to Marion. Currently living in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been a nurse for 8 years. Done med-surg, ICU, psych, PACU, a little bit of everything. And my one word would be unapologetic.
Yeah. Love it. Well, I'm Ama Mathewos. I am originally from Orlando, Florida, but I have been working as a nurse right after grad school for almost 20, nursing school for almost 20 years in New York City. I've done med-surg, I've done oncology, and I've done inpatient, outpatient, night shift, day shift, like all the things. But what I've consistently done now over my 20 years is be a nurse leader. And that kind of specialty of work is very near and dear to my heart, as I feel like it touches everything and creates space for healthy spaces for nurses. And so one word that I would use to describe being a Black nurse in America would be compassionate. Just, you have to have deep compassion because people will test your compassion. So truly compassionate nurses. So thank you all for that. So let's just dive right on in. Very kind of, easy first question around why'd you become a nurse? Anybody can take it.
Well, I personally became a nurse because my great grandmother, she had 19 kids, and from like my 7th to 12th grade year of high school, 2 or 3 of them had cancer, and I would be bedside with them before I actually got on the actual bedside. So I was nursing before I became a nurse, and I guess it just carried over. Mm-hmm. And I come from a city where we don't have a hospital. There's no healthcare system, and I dream of one day bringing it to my hometown. Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, so my transition, I didn't know about nursing growing up. I mean, I knew what nurses were, but no one in my family. My father was a firefighter, so that's what kind of got me into firefighting and EMS. And after getting into EMS, I learned about nursing. Once I started working around the hospitals, I found out about anesthesia and decided that I wanted to pursue becoming a CRNA. It just took a very scenic route to get here, but that was my drive, is to expand my ability and opportunities within healthcare.
I'll go next. I became a nurse because nursing kind of runs in my family. So all the way back, never thought that I would experience a global pandemic, but nurses in my family have been there from 1918 through tuberculosis and now through COVID. Um, so it kind of was like I knew I wanted to do something in healthcare. Like always, my grandma was a nurse, taught me all the things, and then just the rush of like being an ER nurse and ICU nurse is why I got into those. But just the longer I was in nursing, the longer I realized that while we're in these critical care areas, like when you look around, you're not really represented. Like you don't represent the patient population is not represented, not necessarily by the nurses. So it kind of kept me like involved and wanting to bring others in.
Oh my God, such beautiful answers. The other question I had related to that was, did you get to see Black nurses growing up, or who inspired you? And just even in answering why you became a nurse, that kind of showed up in some of those answers. Especially you, Casey, saying you grew up in a family of nurses. Were there, Travius, like, were there nurses caring for your family, Black nurses caring for your family members?
Um, so my mom became a nurse in my late teens. My late teens, yeah. So I saw it from her, but no, the ladies that were coming, they were no, they weren't black. They were coming by the house. Becoming a nurse where I'm from is like, because it's a poverty-stricken city. Like a lot of people just, to make that even like the amount of money as a nurse for a lot of people is like life changing. So yeah, um, not many people became nurses where I'm from. To sum it up,
Yeah, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. But your mama did.
my mama did.
But shout out to her for sure.
Yeah.
Um, as we talk about how we either have seen them growing as we're growing up, or even in school or at work, and how that inspired us. What are other ways, if we can all share a moment where race kind of shaped our experience at work?
I kind of have like my historical example of
Mm-hmm.
working in Baltimore City and Maryland and working in places where I was the only Black ICU nurse, especially being in a population where like a lot of the patient population was Black or African American or some mix of Black and something else. And just seeing the way that they were treated and how things like people being loud or lots of people being present in the room was seen as like a different way because they were Black. Also being so many times people asking if I was EVS, or like support staff, like other support staff not being able to like comprehend that I was the nurse taking care of them. How because I was Black, how could I be a nurse taking care of them? And I just think that was like interesting, especially in such a where like the area is predominantly Black, but where patients still like ask you if you're EVS or like assume that you couldn't be the nurse taking care of them, which was really interesting to me. And even like my dad had surgery when I was thinking about CRNA school, and up until that point, I had never seen like a Black CRNA. Like never seen it. My mom was like, it made her like, she's a worrywart, and she was like, after she has talked to me, I feel so calm. He's gonna be taken care of. And like when I saw that, I was like, that's it. That's what I want to do. Like this woman, just by being authentically her, like I've never even seen a Black CRNA. My dad literally was like, I've never seen my mom and my dad had surgery like a couple times each, and they were like, I've never even like met anybody that's Black that does this, and that made me feel so much better, like seeing myself represented. So I think like those like experiences, I didn't realize at the time like that I was like experiencing them until I kind of stepped back and realized that like I wasn't the only person that was experiencing the same things in like different areas that I worked in.
Yeah.
You had some, Trevor?
No, you got it,
Okay,
brother.
got you. So I'd say that my word that I use for experiences of Black nursing in America is needed, because unlike a lot of people's story, I don't have a lot of negatives that directly impacted me as an individual, right? Like I've never been asked if I was EVS. I've typically gotten saying, "Hey, are you my doctor?" You know what I mean?
Doctor. Mm-hmm.
Or something along those lines, right? But I also am very self-aware and environmentally aware. I stand 6'3", 200 some odd pounds. So, usually that changes a person's perception sometimes, right? So
Yeah.
where the experience comes in is when I've moved into these spaces from working EMS, from working in the ER, ICU, pediatric environment, is how my patients respond to me as opposed to responding to someone else, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
when the connection is made to me because I'm I don't want to say ignorant to it. I may be a little bit naive to it because it hasn't been my
Mm-hmm.
personal experience. But when I have a patient where the physician is explaining something and explaining it in a way that they don't really comprehend, and then I
Yeah.
have that opportunity to talk to them in a way that they can understand what's happening, and they're like, "Oh man, thank you for that," because I didn't know what he was talking about, but they were too either embarrassed, ashamed, or scared to
Yeah.
ask for clarification. When I've worked in pediatric environments, and you got a small child that maybe have not been around any other races, and is scared to interact with all of the other providers, and then I pick her up and she lays her head on my chest and it's calm. Like it just does something to my my soul. And that's
Yeah.
why I say needed, because a lot of people who don't or haven't been negatively been impacted by limited representation, they don't understand why it's important. But when
That's right.
you get in these environments and you have an 80 something year old lady looking at everybody else in the room and she looks at you and say, "Baby, please keep me safe."
Yeah.
Those are the
Mm-hmm.
experiences that speak to me, and why I can
Mm-hmm.
say we're needed,
Yeah.
because there's a population of people who just simply feel a little bit more comfortable, have a little bit more
Yeah.
trust and belief in healthcare because of seeing individuals who resemble them.
Man.
Man, I mean, that just so many patients' face like just popped up when you said that because
Yeah.
it could be something of like, give me some real food in here too. Please keep me safe, or what does all this mean? And so, oh, I just got chills. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, very much needed.
And the sigh
Travis,
of
what you got?
relief.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I was just gonna say the
Mm-hmm.
sigh of relief when people see you.
my
Yeah.
Yeah.
experience is my experience has kind of been location based. Like in Alabama, my experience as a black nurse was completely different than what it currently is in Atlanta.
Yeah,
In Atlanta,
ATL
yeah,
doesn't compare. Like
nah,
in the
and that
city, it's
in
it's
that
it's a different environment.
it's a different world. I feel so welcome. I feel accepted. I feel like I'm at home.
Yeah.
When I came to Atlanta, I never saw so many CRNAs, black doctors, black dentists, black everything. It's crazy. But back
Blackety,
home,
blackety,
like
blackety, black.
yeah,
Atlanta
but
will do that to you.
but in Alabama, I had a ton. It started out rough for me, y'all. My first job, I
Mm-hmm.
dealt with a lot of racism, like racism, from the
Yeah.
patients to the management to like everything to the board, everything. So
Oh,
yeah, it's like night and day when it comes to location. That's my
yeah.
experience. Yeah.
How did you navigate, sounds like you didn't even have microaggressions, but these macroaggressions or straight up biases or racism. How did you navigate that in Alabama?
Um. Ooh, I had to be on my p's and q's. Like I was forced to outperform myself just to be safe. Like it's crazy. It's like I doubled down on myself. I put more pressure on myself just to satisfy them. But I knew it was all temporary. So keeping that in mind, knowing, okay, Travius, you won't be here forever. I had bigger dreams, bigger goals always. Always was to move, but I always wanted to be strategic, and I wanted to gain my experience the right way. I didn't want to start off with, oh, he's already quitting jobs, doing this and that. Like, let me stick it through, but let me be smart and me calculate my steps and make sure I'm documenting each and everything, all instances. It's like I became familiar with the court and the law of nursing during my first job immediately. I ain't have a chance to not be able to experience, like what you say, Everett, you didn't experience any negative connotations really. I started off negative.
Mm-hmm.
So that had me on edge my entire nursing career, even today. Shoot.
I feel the same way.
Yeah, I'm on pins and needles. But I'm also unapologetic though. So it's like, yeah, they know what's up.
I want to hold space because I know for our listeners, there is, whether it's small or large, every day or once a year, that this is a very common experience where someone's having to navigate, show up differently, having to perform, you know, twice, you said triple document, overbeat calculation, that put so much stress on your mind, your body, you know what I mean? And so my heart just
Any text messages I get from the hospital, any phone calls, like I'm getting immediate anxiety. Like why should I be feeling that way when it comes to my job?
Yeah. And so, I mean, one of the questions I was going to say, what is like code switching, or, having to be twice as good in the work that you either have done or are currently doing? Like, what does that look like for you? I don't know. Have you found a lane or organization where you don't feel like you even have to do that? I'll maybe start with Casey and then work my way around
So I will say, after like becoming the alphabet soup queen, everything became a little bit easier.
yeah.
If people are listening, you're like, what is that? Like my anesthesia big bro, Everett, super certified and have like all these nursing certifications. And while I did it for personal great gain, I also did it because a lot of my, um, a lot of my managers that I had had in the past kind of were like, "Oh, we're not paying for you to do certification because we don't think you'll pass." Um, and like kind of having doors like slammed
Yeah.
in my face, and not having people having less experience getting into like situations and places. And I was like, okay, if I have to be 5 times better than you, then I'm going to get certified 5 times better than the next person, 8 times
Yeah.
better, And I was like, it sucks because people will get into positions and that they're like less qualified than you, but it
Yeah.
means being like, I almost think that sometimes being Black in healthcare means you inherently have to be 8 times better than somebody else to even be like considered equal to them on a playing field. And even in like leadership, like being passed over for opportunities when I was a nurse leader, and looking at people going like, I'm way more experienced than you, and
Mhm.
I have way more determination, grit, and like just raw nursing experience, but I know that you got this because you're friends with somebody or because we
Mhm.
differ like color wise. So being able to like rationalize that but understand that like, and my mom always said like, it's not fair that this is how it is for you, but it means that you have to be better. Like, you have to be
Yeah.
better, so be better. And I think that that's like why I picked the word resilient, is like, you have to be fine with like, you're gonna get kicked once or twice, and that's not the way it should be. And I work every day that it's not this way. But be resilient, because you getting up and like punching back lovingly, respectfully, professionally is
Yeah.
how you end up beating all the people who want to bully you out of this career before you even start.
Mm. Geez, a couple things came up for me with that. One, when you just talked about applying for positions or not getting, you just took me back to, I guess, my historical or first, like, I would get on an everyday basis, like when I was clinical bedside, after giving care, great care, interacting, meds, dressing changes. I was on the surgical, all of that. And I would hear the patient be like, well, I'm not sure who my nurse was. And I'm like, well, who did you think I was these past 12 hours? And they would be like, the CNA. You know, sometimes they say, oh, but you're so young. And when I became a leader, I often, people were like, oh, are you the case manager? Are you the social worker? And I'm like, I've been here before, nurse manager, you know. But yeah, that's tiring and it's exhausting. And the other big story that I think where race really played a part was me and a colleague applied to be in the PACU, going from med-surg to the PACU. I told her about the position. She was white and I am black, right? Or she is. And she used to refer to her, we started on the same day. It was like literally one of, you know, the Harvard kind of resume in real life type of thing. I applied first. She also applied. They have multiple positions, y'all, by the way. We were hired on the same day for this med surg unit. So we literally are like the same person outside of who we are individually, right? Like, and she would refer to herself as, she was like, you're a RN and I'm a BN. And it was like a little joke between us. She never felt really confident. She couldn't do like a mango, blood pressure and stuff like that. So self-proclaimed, right? So we both interview. I actually was able to interview in professional attire. She came in from her night shift and interviewed in scrubs. She got the job. I did not. And she was like, I can't believe why. Like, why? Like, there's multiple positions. How did I get it over you? And, you know, I just walked away from that like, wow. So I asked, what kind of feedback would you have? What do I need? She was like, oh, we're looking for nurses with more clinical experience. I mean, all these things that Megan and I are one for one. And it was just really eye-opening to me. Like, even when you are twice as good, or put your best foot forward. And so the word resilient of just finding a place where you'll thrive and grow and not really getting caught up on people's like ignorance or bias to really define who you are. And so sometimes I think it could show up when you get real motivated and get the alphabet soup, or maybe you just are like, you know what, this organization and this town, and that, you know, sometimes that maybe comes with privilege if some places don't have many options. But, you know, also we don't have to, I think, and nowadays I like to think that everyone doesn't have to also stick around in an organization where that type of stuff is kind of promoted, encouraged, or is throughout.
And I would also say your national nursing organization, for whatever specialty you're in, depending on specialty, but usually there's avenues, like if you are pretty much every specialty, every color under the rainbow, there's like an organization for you. So if you're not comfortable, like, you know, I know like for CRNAs, there's diversity in nurse anesthesia, there's ACN,
Mm-hmm.
ANA, and like NBNA and NHA. I cannot remember the acronym for the Hispanic Nurses Association. I'm sorry. I love you and I love and respect all of you. But basically, like, there's an organization for you nationally if you're not getting that where you are and you don't have the means to like move out of the environment. So like, don't ever feel like you're alone. Is like maybe
Yeah,
like a midsection like thing I just want to tell people that are listening.
that's
Like,
right. Yeah.
this is supposed to be like, we're telling you our stories, but we're also like, there's places that support you too. So if you're listening to this, you're like, this is me. This is my unit. There are places where you can feel comfortable. And I know, especially like for me, being in the suburbs and working and living in the suburbs and working in a city, were like two different complete universes for me. And I found support in other organizations.
Yeah, and I wanted to speak on that slightly briefly. Um, some of my best and biggest blessings have came in the form of no
Mm.
Mm.
or not right now. So while I understand completely, there are opportunities that you have been passed over or feel as if you've been passed over,
Mm-hmm.
that you were more qualified than another, be it race, gender, age, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, don't forget that sometimes no was your answer, and it was the right
Mm-hmm.
answer in that moment and space of your life. And uh, um, Travius mentioned earlier about um, that stress of the job calling and going to work.
Mm-hmm.
We all of us have to stop sometimes adding that extra stress, because then that weighs you down. You can't run the race if you have too much weight on you. So when it comes to trying to be better and the best, try not to think about the word better and just be your best. Do what you can do, because a whole lot of looking left and right is going to give you that imposter syndrome and that bias, because they over there doing that and I'm right here. So there's just something else. I just don't want people to it's enough life heavy without adding to your plate. You know what I'm saying? So be your best.
And I should add, so I love that you said that. So that no absolutely got me a really great yes. I went on to, it moved me to oncology, which that specialty I love. I got a day shift position and that was night shift position. I wanted to actually, a priority was to get off night shift at the time. And the manager that hired me was a Jamaican woman. And I learned so much from her, both clinically, as a leader, and who came like I mean I'm like I call her my mom, and this is she came to my wedding and she's still very much a part of my life, and so you're absolutely right that and that's where I kind of, and I love that you expanded on that. It meant where like sometimes things are out of your control, but and accept that and just find and keep going, and yeah, that no just opened up way more opportunities and made me a happier, healthier nurse. Travis, what were you gonna add?
Yeah, code switching to me is like when you have to put on this face for certain people that you really don't put on with everyone else. It's like Everett telling me to do something and I do it a certain way, but Evan come behind Everett and I do it like the best way I could really could have did it. But with Everett, it's like I'm kind of because you're my brother, right? But for other people, you go up and beyond. That's code switching to me.
You know, I'm glad you described it away, and I'm actually glad we're talking about code switching, because I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day about code switching, and basically our interpretation was talking differently or acting differently in front of a different nationality, race, or whatever, or even performing differently. And I totally agree that if you are performing differently for others as opposed to others, whichever way you want to flip it, that's when it becomes somewhat problematic. But the original sense of code switching, or definition, I mean, it's not really we paint it as a
Mm-hmm.
bad thing most of the time, but I'm not going to talk to adults the same way I talk to kids. That's technically code switching, right? Because I'm speaking to them in the way in which they understand it. You know what I mean? So I think sometimes we group the
Yeah.
negative in with the positive or true origin of it. But I totally agree that when people are acting like
Mm-hmm.
not themselves in front of others is when it becomes problematic, because I'm always myself, but I ain't as comfortable around people I don't know as I am with my homeboys. We gonna talk, we gonna chill, we gonna do our thing because we're comfortable with each other, right? But to me, that's not the same professional Everett, because one,
And hey,
I
I was
don't
about
want
to
y'all
say
to know me like
it's
that.
it's a thin line between code switching and professionalism too.
Boom, there it is.
Yeah,
Well,
let me hear.
may I? I so it's interesting, right? Like there is where you want to be, what you say the thin line between
Mm-hmm.
professionalism and code switching, right? Who gets to say what is professional or not, right? And so the same thing shows up. Part to me, code switching is not so much just about how we speak, but how we show up, how we're going to wear our hair. My first art, and for many interviews, right? I've been natural since undergrad, so a long time ago. But when I went for my RN interviews, to be hired in the city, your girl had a slick back bun or a silk press, right? And then I remember once I got the job, it was on the unit. I had my hair was much bigger, to the point patients would be like, the girl with the hair. They would always do that. That's kind of how I would go by, or I didn't go by. That's what people would say. Actually would say, the wild hair, which is disrespectful. But I think that's a perfect example of me being like, oh, I know to fit the larger group's definition of what is professional, I need to have my hair in a slick back bun, or I need to go get my hair pressed, right? And that to me is code switching. Or I, just think of, at least I think about, like, when I'm speaking to both ways. I have two children. My first OB was a white man, and my second one was a Black woman. Completely different office visits. She was always professional, but we were able to speak in a more relaxed tone with one another. Her cultural competence was a little bit, we were just on the same page in that way. And so if she spoke the same way that she spoke to me to other patients, I think they would question her professionalism, when really she's still providing the same care. And when I say, when she spoke to me in a way, she never even broke into slang. I don't even mean that. Like, and I think sometimes that's what people will say what code switching is like, oh, I'm just not using slang. But I think it's, using your natural pace of language or tongue or posture, telling a joke, whatever it is, but like not still being your authentic self and professional versus, have you ever seen the meme where it's just like you're a polar bear at work and you unzip it? You're like a brown bear or a black bear at home. And it's just taking on these behaviors or language or attire that the larger society identifies as normal or professional. And so we switch into that until we're back in another environment where we know we won't be judged negatively for wearing our hair naturally or whatever the case may be.
And I think with that too, I'll say, like, my experience with that has been different. Like, I worked in the city. So while I was maybe the only Black nurse, there was a lot of support staff. Like, pretty much every tech, every unit secretary, every EVS person in our hospital was Black. And but the nurses were like overwhelmingly white. Like, I was like the only in like a very, very urban area of Baltimore. And I constantly got, well, if you just talked, well, you talk white. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. I grew up in the suburbs, and like I always say, like, lovingly, like, I'm a burbs babe. And it's like people expect you to have what they deem as like a ghetto accent, because in their mind, people from Baltimore and people from Atlanta sound completely different. But to people that want people to code switch, it's like, oh, well, you're around Black people, you can stop with the fake talk. And it's like, but this is how I speak all the time, and I've never like known anything different. Or like when people insist, like when I was saying that all of my family was like, I did not grow up around Black nurses, because half of my family is white, like Indiana white. My mom and I are the only Black people in their side of the family. And in my dad's side of the family, I'm the only mixed person. Everybody else is like Black, Black only, Black ever. So my mom and I are the only mixed people in his family, and we're only the only mixed people in her family. So it is truly like I'm 50% Black, 50% white. And it's insane how the people where she grew up, like, she gets past, people think she's Hispanic or white like constantly, but she had to fight. Like, the NAACP had to fight for her to go to school in the 60s in Indiana, where a lot of people tell her that when she worked with Black people over the years, they were like, you don't know what it's like. And she was like, but I do, because I had to fight to go to school because everybody knew I was mixed. And it's like the interesting thing about code switching is, like, I don't think it's negative. And I've never thought, even when I was a nurse leader and I had people who grew up in Baltimore that worked at our hospital, they would always try to code switch and sound white at work, or try to sound like they didn't have an accent that just happens when you live in Baltimore. If you've ever seen the iron earned and earned, that is like Baltimore City accent. And everybody who lives there has it. But they would try to speak proper because they thought that that's what people wanted to hear. And I'm like, no, stop code switching. You are not. And if anybody ever calls you ghetto for being who you are, and like what their perception of ghetto is, don't code switch, like, be you. So like somewhere in there I just became like authentically myself, and I'm like, no, like, I don't really care. I'm not code switching. Like, you're getting me all the time, however I want to be. Like, I will be obviously professional, but like how I am on LinkedIn is how I am when you see me working in the hospital, and how my friends see me. Like, you're getting the same person, because I don't think it's acceptable to change who I am to please you in a professional environment. So I think like code switching is seen as negative, but like I get why people do it because they don't want those negative attributes, but at the same time, like you only really change people's perception of what code switching means when you are your authentic self in every way. Like my some of my staff, like I mean, they literally spoke like Ebonic slang, like people who are like truly from New Orleans, like they spoke like basically Creole at work, and like the patients loved it, and they were like, "But they're you, like you are. There's so much personality in you, and you're not telling me what I want to hear, like and how I want you to sound. Like you look different, so you obviously are gonna sound different." So I think that like the other thing is be authentically you, and if I get it, if you don't have the support, you're not doing that. But if you have the support, be you.
Yeah, I think you ended on what is the case, right? Like I mean, people would love to work for a leader like you. And that's why I do like the leadership development work that I do, is to really, you have to create a psychologically safe work environment to have anything be sustainable and have people retained and diverse, is you have to let people be themselves. And so on that note of kind of creating the workforce or the profession or the world that we want, and really showing up as our authentic selves, what's your thing, whether it's mentoring, offering support, working on, like, how are you using your power and your authenticity, to really show up in rooms and kind of impact our profession?
I
Who wants to go?
Me
There you go for
personally,
it. Yep.
um, as we living in an internet world, I try to use it and it to its best of its capabilities to be innovative as possible. Like I I'm a music artist as well, right? So I like to showcase that side of me. I'm an author. I wrote a book that details my life as a black nurse coming from Alabama to now. Actually, um, I help with production sets,
Oh,
directing, co-directing, freaking partner with prop studios. I do a lot of things dealing with media and entertainment, and I just want to show other men out there, specifically men, like, cause I'm trying to get more and more of us on this page that make healthcare can be fun. You can make it fun. You can make it what you want it to be. It's what you want it to be. And if I can do it, you can do it. Like I come from seriously the most poverty-stricken city in America, and if I can come from there to where I'm at right now and still be able to do all the stuff y'all currently love to do, rap, dance, show my personality. If I can do that plus this, you can do it. You can do it as well. So I just want to use myself, people like Everett, as examples. Like, the sky's the limit. And I'd rather much have you here in the hospital with me than out there on the streets doing God knows what. So I'm just showcasing my personality, being me all around, unapologetically, on and off the internet. People see it, they love it, they gravitate towards it. I'm open to it. Any questions you have, anything you got healthcare related, sure. I'm always open. I'm an open book.
love
Yeah.
you. Thank you for being you. And nurses in the media, which is on a rise, but definitely a gap that we have to close, to tell our story, all the different stories, and what it means to be a part of the profession and all the different ways you can join. So thank you for that, Everett. What you got?
Um, I think my whole journey has been a little unintentional at times. Like I've never set out to intentionally network. I just wanted to know, like I needed to move over here. I needed to go over there because I wanted to know. And by moving in those spaces, I was networking. I was meeting people. And then when it came to social media, I was just sharing my story just because, and I would start getting messages from, man, honestly, everybody, males, females, white, black, Latino, Asian, like people reaching out and saying, "Hey, I've never seen anybody do this, or I've never met anybody who've done this. Um, how do you do this with a family? How do you do this at this age? This is a second career, so forth and so on." And I'm like, thank you for sharing, because some days I do feel like, "Man, why am I posting this? Do I even need to really keep posting this?" But every time I have that question about if I should post it, somebody reaches out and says that your story inspired me, or, seeing you leave fire service and be where you are now gave me hope. And I'm like, I'm not Jesus Christ, like I'm not giving people hope, but it's just, but that's the thing, like you never know who's watching, so my goal and target now is simply just to be the best version of myself and not keep it to myself. And by doing that, I'm allowed to inspire somebody else. I got one of the best case examples that I got right now is a young brother that I know who somebody introduced him to me, and now he's in CRNA school. He came from same parts of the city that I came from, so to speak, and we're doing things that people who came from where we came from saw it as
Right. Yeah.
impossible. So that's what I'm doing, and I don't turn down a mentee, should I say. I don't take on like traditional mentees in the sense that I'm gonna be calling you, working on specific projects with you. You're gonna have to ask me some questions. I'm gonna give you some answers, right? But I don't charge for those things, because I feel really blessed and fortunate that I have had people pouring into me since I stepped foot in the door. So it is impossible for me to charge what was given to me freely. For me, I don't knock other people who do it, but I cannot do. It's my way of paying back those
Yeah,
people who I
man.
can never repay.
I got questions for you too. But yeah.
For
Here
sure.
later,
Here or later.
later.
All right. Good.
Casey, what's your thought on this?
So I'm very much like Everett, which is funny because I would say that like he's one of the people that's mentored me like when I wasn't sure if this was for me or when I had no support from anywhere else. One of our like mutual mentors was like, "Hey, you should like talk to this guy Everett. He kind of has the same like journey as you." Turns out like I'm literally following his footsteps like every day. Literally like everything that it's like the anything you can do, I can do the same thing, not better, but the same thing. So like
That's beautiful.
it's been really like for me, my like social media thing is like helping people get into spaces that people
Mm-hmm.
told them that they never belonged in. Especially like I am second person, the first person in my dad's family to graduate from high school, second person in all of my family
Yeah.
history to go to college, first person to get a master's degree, first person to get a doctorate. Like, I mean, to the point that like I'm the first person in my dad's family to not have a kid and like before they graduated from high school. And it's just like no one like people supported me all the way through, but I didn't really have anybody that was like my person, and so many other people don't have that. So kind of like when I mentor people, it's like, let me help you, like I've gotten into these spaces and let me help you
Mm-hmm.
get into those same spaces. Let me help you. You want this goal, okay, how are we going to get there? And just like Everett, it's not like I'm checking in and I'm calling. It's like you reach out to me and we're setting goals, and like you want what I have, okay, let's make that a reality. Because I just feel like I kind of lucked into like a lot of the opportunities, but I lucked into them because like the I was always very intentional about saying like, this is my goal, I want to do this, who will help me get there, and found people that would help me get there. And now I feel like it's my like journey, I guess, to help other people get to the same places that I did. Because I mean, like being the first person in your family to go to college transcends color. a lot of people where they grew up, it transcends color. Like if you grew up in a very impoverished area, which I did, you didn't like you didn't have the same opportunities growing up, and you don't have the same connections. So I'm going to help you get those connections and help you find your own support people, so that then you can turn around and support somebody else. So my thing is like I'm never pulling the ladder up. I'm always helping the next person, and then hoping that as I go taller, the people behind me are pulling ladders for the next person, so that everybody can, step up the ladder.
I love that. And as everyone just shared, something just came to my spirit to share, that for all our listeners, whether you're Black or not, I want to kind of put a plug in, if you will, that whether a Black nurse in America came from riches or not, whether they were the first or not, what is, I think, equally true most often is that they still all experience the same type of racism, whether that's in nursing school or in the workplace. And I felt compelled to share that because I think sometimes folks will say, oh, well,
Right.
it might be because you never done this before, right? Or like, oh, your family was poor, you came from a poor city. And all of those things are actually not because of who our families are or what their value or capabilities were, but just the system, the larger system that America was created on and still kind of, still exists on. And so the thriving piece, regardless of where you're at in your journey or where you quote unquote came from, is challenging because there are systems in place that really fester, if you will, kind of these racist things and or unconscious or conscious biases that Black nurses experience. Full stop, period. And so, because, sometimes when we talk about race, people think it's because of the Black person and all that. So I really just felt compelled to clarify that point for our listeners. What would be, and in that vein, I guess my question for us to answer or talk about is like, what could be real support? What would you love to see as like real support for Black nurses? And that could be what you think would really support change their experience in school or in the workplace.
Yeah, I'll jump in, and in my opinion, just more of us helping us, because I think sometimes it's like Casey was saying earlier about different organizations that support you, right? Like everybody, I don't give you an example. I'm trying to make a long story short, y'all. Sometimes you just, you pull that passion string. I got to go with it. But sometimes I hear people say when they're trying to get into CRNA school, what type of support did the program give you? And I get it. I totally understand that that's a valid question. But I'm the type of person who I don't necessarily look for what kind of support you're going to give me, right? I look for my own support, so to speak. I'm going to build my own fortress around me because I live the life of ain't nobody coming to save me, right? Nobody's coming to save me. So I have to save myself, and I'm okay with that. Like I've gotten to a place where I'm okay with saving myself because if the ship sink and nobody comes, I'm going to drown by myself. So I don't want to drown. Therefore, I'm going to build my own support. I think that we as a whole, as leaders, influencers, whatever you want to call yourself, have to be the support for the next generation. Like whatever you didn't get, whatever you didn't feel you have, step up and be that to somebody else. I don't care if it's one person. And to me, that's the type of support that's most needed, is those of us who have made it giving back.
And I will say, it's kind of interesting because currently in school, like we have a presentation on like racism and bias and just kind of like how those perceptions started. And I think that for a lot of people, I'm going to answer this two ways. The first thing is that people think that allyship is just saying like, I support you. And it's like, if you want to say that you're an ally for the Black community, for the Hispanic community, anybody marginalized, essentially, the first thing is like recognizing what bias you might have. If you're listening and you're like, I'm an ally of the community, well, what work do you do to be an ally? Do you say things? But if you saw somebody be discriminated, are you doing something? Like, and it doesn't have to be big and heroic, but when you see racism, do you intervene? What earlier in the podcast episode I talked about, like, people thinking I was EVS. My preceptor, who was an ally and a very like unapologetic white woman, walked in the room and was like, "You will not speak to my orientee like that." You can very clearly see that she's a nurse. I don't really like this attitude. We will be finding another patient to work with today. That you like, you can stay in your same mind frame, but you will not treat our, like, my preceptee like this. She did not go to nursing school to be treated like this by you. And I was like, "Oh, it's fine, it's fine." She was like, "No, this is unacceptable, and I'm not going to subject you to this. If you want to keep them, great, we will. But if you want somebody else, like, let me." And she started calling people, and she was like, "This is not acceptable." And like that, I don't like. We've had this message only unit, and I don't like it. So she was like being an ally, standing up. It doesn't have to be heroic. It just has to be. You have to be there. And if you like, I think that when like Everett talks about support, it's like the same thing that I think, like, in anesthesia there's a big push to have more representation from other communities because only like 3 to 5% of CRNAs are non-white. Well, that's great to say we're going to do things to get people into school, but then you have to think about, like, for me, I'm the first person in my family to go to school. So are you then supporting me by, if I don't know anybody that's a CRNA and I don't have any way, like, are you suggesting avenues that I could support? Just like we're this big push for more nurses of color to be in nursing because it shows like the care is better. People get more better cultural care and people are represented in like the communities that they work in, and that's great. But then how are we actually, like, we're putting one piece together? And like one thing I would love to see in nursing is like, just like, okay, we're going to put Black CNOs and CEOs in healthcare. Okay, that's great. So we've opened the door, we've taken out bias for these people, but we're not mentoring them in any way. People who have never had this experience, like, and we're not giving them the tools to be successful. So then when they're not successful, then it's, oh, well, that's why we look for other characteristics, or that's why we don't put these people into this situation. So sometimes I feel like healthcare, whether it's purposely or non-purposely, sometimes I think self-sabotages the mission that they do in the DEIB like arena of doing, of like trying to really have diversity. And I think that like more thought process on like, we open up the door, but how do we like keep people at the table and then like let them cook, for lack of better words.
Yeah. Travius, what you got? What would real support for Black nurses look like?
I think they just about summed it up. I would say the best support you could really honestly give yourself to learn how to love yourself. Like, do the good, bad, and the ugly. I I was the only Black male nurse to graduate from my class at the University of Alabama at the time. I was forced to cut my dreads off in school. Uh, Freaking my first job was in Tuscaloosa, and I dealt with a case where if I hadn't loved myself, I would have been let myself go. And if it wasn't for this other nurse, like you say, black, white, brown, or blue, to stand up for what's right versus what's wrong, when my manager at the time was trying to get her to be a liar and go lie to like upper management on me. And she came and flat out told me, sent me a text message, showed me he trying to get me to lie. Yeah, I don't think it's right. Blah blah blah. That's what inspired me to write my book. But learn to love myself and taking the bad and turning it into something positive. To me, that's all the support I ever needed. And not allowing anything to stop me. If I allowed it to stop me, I wouldn't be on this platform with people like y'all, still being able to elaborate on this topic and to, like, we doing the work right now naturally. This is the type of support we need, getting together, doing things like this. So I don't know. I don't have a definite answer for it.
I ain't gonna sit up here and lie to you like I know all the answers, but just being there for one another, not playing into this system. I don't know what all we can say on the podcast, but like I think I look at this system like nothing can ever compare to what our people been through in slavery, right? Nothing. But slavery was a system. And I think that system kind of like in these hospitals. Some people get positions, they'll do things to you to get a position. And, you know, it's like a dog eat dog world. And to prevent that, we got to be supportive of one another, work together down here versus these big corporations up here. Because, sure, I don't know how many hospitals y'all work there, but I never met most of the owners. Most of the owners, I never met them a day in my life. Probably don't even know most of their names. But, you know, what I'm basically saying is people up top have systems in place for the people down here. And you can let them systems destroy you, or you can be there and be a support of one another and combat this system on the front line together versus letting it corrupt you. I saw a lot of people, you know, they start off in nursing, they start off innocent. By year 5 or 10, maybe a completely different person. I don't want that to happen to me or future generations. So in order to prevent that, we have to support one another and love one another. Yeah.
Those when I was thinking of my answer, I guess, you know, Everett started off with just like how he just turned inward, and you know, you ended just now with, you know, love yourself first. And Casey, your thing I think is still just the real the importance of allyship, right? And in that being an action. And so love and or values or support to me should be a verb, and not just kind of like a statement. And I think in everyone's statement, I guess I'm just like the power of no one's going to save you as an individual, and definitely no one is going to save us as a collective. And so that's work that we have to do, as you said, like whether it's these conversations, one-on-one mentorship, the big platforms that you have as influencers, are all things that we're doing that are the one thing I was going to say was like what Black nurses really need is just someone to believe them. Right. And I think in a way of that is like seeing them and hearing their stories, and meeting their needs. And in the way that everybody answered the question, I think it's in action, with those stories. So love that. I want to close with asking each one of you in a hopeful way, whether it's a word or just like a short response of like, what's your hope for the future of nursing, or what are you for Black nursing, I should say, or Black nurses? How do you envision that? What path do we see her on, or what do you think nurses should be striving for? And we'll just go around and share. And give a moment to think about it, because it could be a lot. Go ahead. Yeah.
I envision overall, I envision a lot of AI things would be implemented within the healthcare system overall. But from a Black nurse's perspective, I envision the scale going from like women here, men right here, to like men here, women like right here. I envision more men being within the system. I believe that's going to help balance out a lot, like a whole lot, especially when it comes to camaraderie and togetherness on the unit. I just think it works with both genders. Then I believe there's going to be more entrepreneurs within the medical space that look like us. We're going to learn how to take our creativities and give birth to new ideas within the healthcare system and be more open to it. And it's going to be a lot of influence, a lot of content creators. The future look bright, I believe. The future look bright.
I think my answer was I'm hopeful, and it I think will show up in different ways, both entrepreneurship or influencer, but just starting to see so many Black nurses in different settings, and being those change makers that those settings need, and not just solely from a Black perspective. But I think what is unique about Black nurses is that when, like, even back to that compassionate work, and just have like this empathy and understanding of what our communities need. I think that's just really ingrained in our culture to be very communal. And so when we're taking up spaces online and policy, I'm just very hopeful that kind of lens or even just framework that we just naturally build on is in building connection and community, and thinking about everyone collectively versus, I think, this individualistic kind of me. And so I'm very hopeful to see all the change makers on this call that's really not just doing stuff to make your family successful and yourself as an individual, but you're clearly, leading the path to make changes in our respective areas.
Casey.
I would just say that I think what I kind of think is like happening more is by people making what started out as individual spaces, um, like the Black Nurse Collaboration, DNPs of Color, Diversity in Nurse Anesthesia Mentorship, making separate spaces. Now it's kind of beautiful to see like a lot of those same people, like Black Nurse Collab is more like leadership. And a lot of the people that are part of that are leaders. And nurse anesthesia is a lot of people are CRNAs, and DMPs of colors, everybody with a doctorate, right? So any level of that, and that kind of transcends like kind of the groupings that we usually find ourselves in. But I just find that it's in the last couple years I've seen like those groups kind of come together and collaborate more. And so it kind of makes the future bright for me, where I think we're approaching soon where leaders are going to start sharing, and people are going to find mentorship a lot easier, especially like with digital age, more Black nurses becoming creators and collaborators, just like we kind of are here. And I think that like kind of like not like a digital age of Black nursing, but sort of where people are able to transcend the bedside area where they work in. So even if you're the only person that works in that unit, there's people that you know all over the place, and you can network and collaborate and just lean into different positions and start stepping stone into different places. And that's super exciting to see, like people making these connections on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, all these different avenues, and starting to get to know each other and create and leave things for like the next generation that's behind us in nursing. So I think that's really like amazing to see.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot. The digital world has allowed for less gatekeeping. It's more accessible to blueprints of different journeys and opportunities that I think traditionally Black nurses weren't exposed to. Everett, Dr. Moss.
So I agree with everything that's been said. Don't really have much to add to the future of nursing. But to the future of nursing, past, present, current, stop giving people the power to control your smile, your worth, and not just your attitude, but also your altitude. When we're out here and we're running into these obstacles, we're getting told no, we're getting told not now. Don't give up your power and kind of back off. Keep going, keep pushing, keep smiling. As we mentioned earlier, continue to love yourself and push yourself to higher altitudes always.
Amen. I think that's a perfect way to end this episode, outside of going around and telling the listeners, where can everyone find you all? Wants to drop their
Ladies
socials. Go, Casey.
So you can find me on Instagram at Critical Care Casey. On Facebook, just search my name. And then on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/Critical Care Casey, or you can just look up Casey Green and you'll know it's me because there's an alphabet soup behind my name. you found me, connect with me. Don't just follow me. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Hit the messaging, because remember, half of networking is reaching out too.
Oh, I love that message. So Ama Mathewos, you can either connect with me on my website, evolveleadsucceed.com, or find me on LinkedIn, which is linkedin.com/Ama Mathewos.
I'm at Travius Keandric. That's TRAVIUS K, and then the internet is spelled the rest. On all social media platforms. You can also find my music and everything like that on Apple Music, Spotify, all digital streaming platforms. But yeah, I'm an open book like Casey. Reach out to me, connect, and yeah, let's keep building.
You can find me on Instagram at _paramurse. Again, that's THE_PARAMURSE. And for those that's wondering, that's not because of male nurse. I took the word paramedic and nurse and merged them together, and we created the paramurse. I used to have quite the alphabet soup behind my name as well, like Casey, but since I moved into the anesthesia space, I've been letting some of those fall off. But I'm still very proud to have obtained all of those certifications for my own growth and development along my career. I did it for me. It
Come on,
wasn't
Doc.
for nobody else. It was for me. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm at with it. I love helping people. It makes one of last quote that I posted recently. I saw a quote that said, "Part of my dream is to see you win." So I don't just dream about my wins. I dream about your wins, and so let's keep winning together.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. All right, listeners, if you like this podcast episode, please like it, comment, share. You can find this on Nurse.org or at all your streaming platforms. So Apple, Spotify. Until next time, everyone be well.